Hi, I'm Pastor Tom Rako, and this is Kent Rydberg with me today. He's a longtime friend. He's a trustee of the Grace Bible Church board. And Kent, thank you first of all for being here. And we're doing a little topical type of message here. So one of the things that the Lord really impressed upon you is the importance of church attendance, being faithful in church attendance. Could you give us some of the background to that?
Some of the background is I was married and I had grown up in a church, and then I married a wife that was from a different background of a church, and we both considered ourselves Christians. And it's hard, I just couldn't quite get into her type of background of church. Mm-hmm. And so she attended the church I attended, and then we had to move throughout the country to a couple different states. And then we were in our eighth year of marriage, I think. And
you had a couple kids?
And we had a couple kids. And we went and we moved in community, and then we couldn't find a church that I felt comfortable in, and she couldn't. And she wanted to go to one church, and I didn't want to go to that church. And so it was really a tough type of a thing, and I felt like I failed in leadership in that area then. And so then after about a year, she decided she wanted to divorce me. And so I think that was partly due to us not being
united in worship and
faithfulness and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so the passage in Hebrews in 10:25.
That's one we pastors like to quote.
Yeah. Let us not give up meeting together as some are in the habit of doing, but let us encourage one another, and all the more as you see the day approaching. So really, when we come to church too, it's not always being fed, it's sometimes encouraging other people too.
Yeah.
And being encouraged ourselves. And it's between people in the church, and it's from the pastor encouraging you and you encouraging the pastor.
And one another, because there's different gifts and abilities. And I think sometimes you're exactly right. It's the attitude of, instead of being an instrument that God can use, because it may be that very day somebody in church needs to know your experience and how the Lord has worked through a problem or difficulty in your life. And but it was interesting, we talked the other day that you felt that was a primary point where the marriage began to suffer then.
Yep, the marriage definitely, I felt the marriage definitely suffered. And so, when I figured it out and looked back, and now I am married again, and that is one of the most important parts and most important things I see in a man's leadership in a family is to really encourage and attend a church.
Set an example.
And set an example.
Not just send off the wife and kids to church, then that's just for them. But I appreciate that. I know that's a very difficult time with the divorce and everything. You've remarried. How long have you been married now?
27 years.
Yeah.
Almost 28.
Yeah. And Brenda, his wife, if you've watched some of our services online, or if you've been here, you've probably heard Brenda sing. And and Brenda came from kind of a brokenness as well, and God brought you guys together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes there's those times that you don't feel like coming
Oh, yeah.
and stuff like that. And that's when you have to rely on your spouse to encourage you to come.
Yeah.
You know, and I think we've both Brenda and I have both been in that.
And sometimes the pastor doesn't feel like coming either.
I can
That's
see why.
true. There's been times when it's very difficult, and but you know, God has, and I look back for me on in other things as well. For example, in Bible college and seminary, I did not miss classes in Bible college and seminary. Very rarely, unless I was sick or there was something just very difficult, because I felt that there was perhaps one thing I was going to learn in that class that would ultimately be important further down the line.
Yeah. And most of the time when we're the most discouraged,
Is when we
or
need
and
the body
when we
of
say,
Christ.
oh, I don't really want to go, and we've often talked about it, Brenda and I have often talked about it, that no, we have really received a blessing each
Yeah.
time we have made the decision to do what God would want us to do.
Yeah,
And,
absolutely.
and go worship.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
he calls us to be faithful, and you know, the enemy likes to cut us off, cull us out, separate us, so then he can tell us whatever he wants, or plant bitterness or whatever, and we need to resist the devil. We need to fight against that, and one of the ways to do that. Well, I'm going to have Kent back, and I want to have him share how, even after this brokenness with the divorce, how God opened up his heart and life and brought him a new life. And I think that's a pretty cool story.